All right. Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Rise and Grind Morning Show. It is May 9th, 2024. And guess what? We have more weather on the way today. I hope it's not as crazy as it was the other night. But if it is, man, you guys got to just get safe, be safe, go somewhere, where you guys can lay down for a little bit and just hope that it passes over. Obviously, Kalamazoo is still dealing with a lot down there. And could be another eventful day, especially with a lot of people displaced. But good morning, everybody. So let's get rocking and rolling this morning. Eric, how you doing today?
Oh, fantastic. As always, Will.
Yeah, I'm a little sore myself, man. So on the tractor all day yesterday, trying to get a lot of things cleaned up and get some things done around the house too. And, I tell you, you feel your age as you get older. You feel like, everything's fine. And then you wake up the next morning, you feel like you just walked into a brick wall. I hate it. I hate feeling that way. So today we've got a special guest on probably around the 8:30 hour. Jeff IFR from the Crunch Time with Jeff IFR and Booter podcast will be on today. We'll be talking Lions rookies today. Which Lions rookies really need to stand out? Who needs to play? Kind of give us a little bit of an expectation, if you will, from his side. And, I'll give you my tidbits too. Probably just going to let him kind of go on and do his thing today. You guys know as well as I do, being part of a former network, he's got a lot of great information, does an excellent job. Love their show. They do a great job every time I get a chance to watch it. And super excited to have him on. So we should have him on around 8:30. What's on your mind today, Eric? What's popping in Lions world for you today?
Well, I went down a rabbit hole last night.
Okay.
So some of our topics today, I really didn't know much about this Rakestraw kid. And I ended up watching a bunch of film of Rakestraw, of his interviews at the draft, his interviews at the combine. And I like this kid's attitude. And I think the only reason he didn't go first round was because of his height. He's super sticky. He has these super awesome fluid hips. He can move side to side. He sticks right with the receiver. He's not super handsy. And the guy's a thumper. He gets in there and puts his nose where it needs to go. So I kind of went down this Rakestraw rabbit hole last night watching a bunch of his stuff. It was kind of cool.
So obviously I did the same with Terrion Arnold, which I've been high on Arnold, so his was an easy one to do today. I'm probably not going to go super deep into a lot of information, only because I think Jeff has about 30 minutes this morning, and I want to let him get his stuff in. So I'll share more stuff as we get going. But Rakestraw. So according to Tim Twentyman, the plan for Arnold and Rakestraw Jr., this is an article that he put out just the other day. Matter of fact, it released this morning. I thought it was out last night. So it released this morning. It says the Lions walked away from the draft with the top two cornerbacks on their board after moving up from 29 to 24 to select Alabama's Terrion Arnold and taking Missouri's Ennis Rakestraw Jr. at 61. I still cannot believe the Rakestraw lasted till 61. I had him probably mid 40s, at the most maybe 50, but definitely a top 50 in this draft. But as we are all well aware, this draft was not normal. This draft kind of got sideways from the very beginning with all of the offensive players that went first. But he goes on to say that Arnold and Rakestraw were primarily used on the outside in college, but both have experience playing inside as well. Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn likes to cross-train his cornerbacks in both spots where he can, and it will be interesting to see if that's the case for both Arnold and Rakestraw from the get-go. Holmes described the upcoming competition at cornerback this summer in training camp as a bloodbath. I don't think he could have put a better moniker on it than that. So the more a player can do, obviously, the more opportunity they may have to find the field quicker. And I tend to agree here with Tim Twentyman and the things that I've written on Terrion Arnold and the things that I'm going to share today are very similar. I did notice, and this is, in one of my pieces, that he not only played, outside last year, about 500-ish snaps, but he also put in about 230 snaps inside. And I found that to be interesting because he's known as an outside corner. But last year he was moved around a little bit for whatever reason. Nick Saban moved him to the inside, and he played just as good. I tend to feel that the inside, slot position for a corner can be tougher, especially, for a younger corner. But it can be tougher because you're getting speedy guys, guys that are making quick moves. They're not running, south more often, the deeper routes. They're running a lot of quick routes, where you've got to be on them. You can't let them loose at all. And then you've got to deal with the tight ends coming over the middle too. So I tend to believe that the slot position can be a lot to handle, especially as a rookie. If you have the goods to play on the outside, I'm not saying it's easier because clearly we know it's not. But I think that both positions are very difficult for a rookie to grasp in year one. So I think it's going to be interesting to see where AG goes with this. Is it open camp competition? Probably. Is Terrion Arnold going to be given an opportunity to play early? I guess we'll find out. And we'll hear what we got to talk about later. So what's your initial reaction to, I guess what Tim said here, that that it's going to be a bloodbath, like Brad Holmes said. What's your initial reaction? What are you looking forward to?
I truly believe that it's going to make everything better. I kind of went down a little bit of a rabbit hole with Arnold last night. I watched some of his tape, and there was two things that stood out to me negative wise from Arnold, that sometimes he flips his hips the wrong direction too soon. So instead of staying equal with the receiver, he'll turn his hips to the outside or the inside just a little too quick, and then he's got to spin around completely to go back after the receiver. And he was a little handsy a few times. He got a few flags in college for being handsy. So he'll have to clean that up in the pros. But the one positive that I really liked was everything you heard on tape was, I can't believe his speed. I can't believe his speed. He kept like running in for the tackle, and they couldn't believe his speed after he was like beat for 4 or 5 yards, and then he'd go catch the guy.
Closing speed.
Yeah, his closing speed. They were just like, man, his speed is elite. And I'm like, all they did was talk about how bad his speed was at the combine.
Yeah,
running 4.5 or whatever. So I'm not worried about the speed thing at all. Game speed and running in a 40 is two completely different things.
So that's a great point. And those are the things that everyone needs to understand too, that when you're just running in a straight line on in a 40 race, at the Pajama Olympics, it's way different than playing, right? These guys are amped up a little bit different during a game. Playing speed, adrenaline, everything kicks in. Their GPS numbers are typically higher during a game. In my opinion, no pads on, no helmet on, right? You're just running, you're full bore, look, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. I feel like what it helps identify is, okay, how fast is the guy? What is the 10-yard, split? Because in my opinion, that's the most important number, especially for a corner. If you've got a great vertical and you have a great broad jump, that tells me that you have lateral area quickness, short area burst. Your closing speed is probably going to have more of a pop to it. And then that 10-yard split tells me how fast you can close on 10 yards. So if you can close down on 10 yards, 1.52, and you're only going 4 or 5 yards, so you're closing in 3/4 of a second with a good vertical and a good broad, that lends for me to believe that you're going to have a better opportunity to make the play. To get down in the box or to, come back on a stop route, whatever it is. Before we get going too much further here, let me welcome in the chat this morning. See who we got popping with us today. All right. We have Tracy's in the house. We've got Derek W., Man Bear Pig, Casey, Zachary Cleary, Braylon Dennis in the house. Braylon Dennis, shout out for your $2 super chat, says, get Justin Simmons or backfield defense is set. I've been wanting Justin Simmons all off season. I just don't see it happening. He's got a big number over his head. I think he's looking for close to 10 million, somewhere between 8 and 10, but close to 10 million. And I just don't see where we're going to have the cap space to do it. We still have a lot of rookie deals to sign. We're sitting at about 23-ish million in cap space. Still have Jared Goff's deal to get done. So there's just not a ton of room. If he can come in on the cheap, 1-year deal on the cheap, great. But they brought in CJ Moore as opposed to bringing in another big name. So I'm wondering if we're set, if we're finally just set, with the back end of the defense. But I do love Justin Simmons, Braylon. I absolutely do. Is that still used here this morning? We got Ryan Van Valkenburg. Braylon Dennis says, I trust Brad Holmes to give Justin Simmons the offer he just can't refuse. Sounds like a movie quote. I don't remember which one, but. All right. So welcome in, everybody. We'll get to you guys here in a little bit when Jeff comes on. If you guys have some questions, we'll ask you guys for a few questions. Of course, when we're talking about different topics, players, whatever questions you have, we will try to get to some of those. But I have some interesting information this morning that I wanted to share. And we've all been waiting for this off-season workout program to come to fruition for a certain player that was drafted last year that Brad Holmes moved up, traded a bunch of draft capital for into the 3rd round. And his name is Broderick Martin. Now, we've seen the pictures, reached out, tried to get some information on Broderick Martin and how he's doing. And the story is Broderick Martin has made the transition from where he was as a rookie, chopping down the weight, getting slim and trim, kind of following that Aleem McNeil plan. And here is one image of Broderick Martin right now. This guy, you can tell, you see the definition in his arms now. He did not have that last year. So I'm excited to see. You can even tell in his face how much slimmer he is. And I'm really excited to see this jump that Broderick Martin's going to make this year. Is it going to happen? I hope so. But all signs are pointing to Martin has put in the work this offseason to give him and this team the best opportunity to being successful here in 2024 on the defensive line. What do you think about Broderick Martin this year, Eric? What are your expectations?
He's got to do something. He basically played in 4 games, I think, last year that he was active. 2.
Yeah, he played like 12 snaps.
Yeah, so he really didn't get that much of a shot. It was prove it. Now he needs to prove it. He needs to prove why they jumped up in the 3rd to grab him from a small school. Is he worth it? And you can tell he's putting in the work. Just like Donovan Peoples-Jones. You see him, he looks like Megatron. He's all ripped. You look at the pictures of JMO, you can tell he's put some weight on his arms. He's put some weight on his legs. These guys are getting after it in the off season. I think from getting to the NFC Championship game and that stinging loss, it takes more. Just like, look, I think it was Brock Wright said, it takes more. So they're putting in the more, and let's make it happen.
Look, I'm excited to see, Broderick Martin's transition this year. I think that, last year obviously was the developmental stage for him. Brad Holmes has mentioned it a few times, even this year, that, bringing in a guy like Broderick, just like bringing in a guy like Giovanni Manu, these are developmental guys. These are guys that you're storing on the roster to give you some future development, to give you future depth, guys that, can be great quality backups and maybe earn their way, onto the starting roster at some point. I would say that there's an outside chance of that, especially with Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader in front of them. And if Levi Onwuzurike gets back to his, rookie condition, or, if Josh Paschal finally makes that jump, I would say that that's going to further push Broderick down. But you cannot keep a big body out of the middle of this defense if he's put the work in, right? If the tools are there and he's able to put forth the effort on the field, I can't imagine how you're going to keep him off the field. Situationally, I think that he's probably going to be used, quite a bit this year. He'll be a solid backup for DJ Reader. I think that's the plan right now is he's, behind DJ Reader as that bigger defensive tackle, not a pass rushing tackle, obviously, someone that's going to be a run stuffer. That's all I can expect from the guy. Zachary Cleary feels that Martin is going to be an absolute beast this year. Man, I hope you are right. I really do. According to Brian Welsh, if you put the work in, you get the results. Isn't that the truth? Who else do we have in here? We got King SJ in the house. Broderick does look good, man. He does. And that's just one of the pictures. I got some other ones in here. If you go to the DetroitLions.com website and you go to like their daily photos, you can kind of look at all of the off-season workout photos. And there's some great images in there. Broderick's in there a few times, and there's a couple more pictures in there where you can see the transition. I mean, he looks flatter. He looks flatter in the front. He looks stronger, more defined. And last year, I mean, let's just call it for what it was. He had a lot of baby fat on him. He reminded me of Nick Fairley as a rookie, right? Just a lot of baby fat, Product looks good, man. I'm excited to see where it goes. And you know what? Holmes needs that pick to work out because there's been so much trash thrown his way, right? Brad Holmes needs that pick to work out, even minimally as a really good rotational player. I think that would be a win for Brad Holmes and the Detroit Lions. Not every pick is going to be great, but Brad Holmes has done a pretty excellent job. So PFF gives the Detroit Lions a draft grade of an A. I feel like it's deserved. You guys know that I was at like a solid B plus. I felt like, by taking some of the developmental guys early, like they did with Manu, I'm good with it. I'm excited to see what happens with Manu. I just wonder if there could have been somebody else there, maybe not give up so much capital, to move around. But we just don't know what we don't know, right, Eric? We just don't know. And Brad Holmes has this way of making people look bad that doubt him. So I don't want to get on that side of the fence just yet.
No.
So I've been pretty lockstep with Brad as far as, the types of players that he's brought in and, where he's taken them. I think that I've been fairly lockstep with his decisions too. I think that, I kind of see some similar things here every year that he does maybe that help in that way. Let me check messages here.
Yeah, Brad likes to cash receipts too, so.
Yeah, and he does keep them.
Cash receipts.
He's got a cash register, in that room. So, if you give him a 50-cent take, he's going to hit 5-0 and check that register button, hit enter, and he's going to pull out something and throw it in your face.
Yeah.
So, all right. Bottom line here by PFF is that Arnold, according to PFF, isn't the most polished of cornerbacks in this class, but his high percentile athletic abilities give him a high ceiling that any cornerback in man or zone systems obviously would benefit from. I tend to disagree. Not that, PFF is ever wrong, because they are, but we're all wrong. We all get things wrong. PFF's been under attack now for a couple of seasons, but I don't really agree with them saying that Terrion Arnold isn't the most polished. I mean, I do see some things that Arnold needs to work on. Again, outside looking in, couch, chair GM, whatever you want to call it. Greenhorn scout, I guess, if you will. I see things, just like everybody else does. And there are some things that he needs to work on, but I really believe in his overall ability to really help this defense this year. What do we got going on here in the chat this morning? Nine Drink says Broderick with this new defensive line coach should be scary. Brian Welsh, not disappointed with the picks, just don't like giving up part of next year's draft. Brian, we actually did pretty good. So we're only missing a 3rd round pick next year. That's it. We've got all picks. We have 2 6s, 2 7s, a 1, a 2, a 4, a 5, 2 6, 2 7s. So I think we're pretty good. I mean, we have 8 picks or something like that. We're just missing a third. And if you think about it, we could give up 2026 to get that third back, or to move up in the first, or to move up in the second. And I think that's, probably where Brad Holmes is now in his, phase with the Lions and drafting and bringing players in, is now he's looking to do exactly what he did this year. He's finally going to move off of some future draft capital to help us out in that year, in that season. So we should be having Jeff IFR on here probably in the next 6 to 7 minutes. We'll wait for him to come into the back room here, and then we'll bring him in as soon as we can. So what else is on your mind today, Eric? What else is going on in Lions Nation?
Well, something I kind of looked at last night was the first, what is this? This was Brad's 4th draft, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So the first 3 drafts we picked 8 players in each of those drafts. Mm-hmm. This year, we only picked 6. Mm-hmm. And then you say we have 7 picks, or 7 or 8 picks next year. So it'll be back to what we were doing before. But maybe we don't need as many quality starters right away out of a draft. So
yeah, I mean, I think that this year, my goal for the Lions was to get 2 impactful players. That's it. Just 2 impact players.
Yeah.
Last year, bringing in 4 impact players was just unprecedented, in my opinion. I have not seen that happen for another team. But Brad he struck gold in every draft. I mean, he's brought in players every draft that have helped the team out that year. Maybe some of those players now from the first draft are now in rotational roles, like Rodrigo. And I feel like that's just kind of the ebb and the flows of drafting. You're finding players to bring in that will help fill in a rotational role that could be good quality backups. And then, as you move down the line, you're finding those players that can help you that season. And I think Brad's just done a great job at filling both of those voids. Looks like we had Jeff join us here just a few moments ago. We'll be bringing him in here in just a moment. But before we do, please do us a favor and check out our sponsor, sportspider.com. That is sport.spyder.com. Give them a check out today and organize all of your news in one place at sportspider.com. So let's bring in Jeff IFR this morning and talk Detroit Lions. We'll be right back here in just a moment. If I can get this overlay to work.
There we go.
Okay. All right. Good morning, Jeff. How you doing today?
What's going on, guys? Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
I'm excited too, man.
I was tuning in a little bit. You guys, it was a great conversation. You guys do a great job.
We try. I'm a little exhausted today, so I'm not my normal self. 2 shows yesterday, and kind of tractor beat me up last night. So I'm feeling it today, man.
I was hearing you vent a little bit at the beginning of the show. I mean, obviously, I don't have room to talk. I mean, I'm in my 20s here, so I should be able to handle a lot of those things. But hey, Will, I don't know if you experienced the tornado. I wasn't sure. I didn't get to. I don't know exactly where you are in the state, but I was fine.
So we are Gun Lake. We were actually driving through it on our way home yesterday for visiting like Home Depot and some other stores, and then we had some really, really bad weather when we got home. So my initial goal was to go get some family members that didn't have basements, get them here, and stay safe. But yeah, we had really bad weather here. We got some damage to the house, but it's minor. We got pretty lucky.
That's good.
So you're on the east side of the state, yeah?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So this morning, I sent you some topics last night. I think, the goal today is we want to give these Lions fans a taste of expectations this year and rookie expectations. I kind of worked up some stuff about Terrion Arnold that I'll get into, but really just want to let you flow with it this morning and have you give us your opinion on the rookie class this year. Do they all need to start? Who needs to start? Who needs to be an impact player? So let's start with Terrion Arnold. Where do you feel Terrion Arnold fits into the defense right now before we get into training camp? And I guess, what do you see for him after training camp?
Well, I think it's funny that, Terrion Arnold, Carlton Davis, I mean, you could argue this secondary now a strength. We'll see. But I think with Terrion, where he was drafted, people expect, especially if you're drafted in the top 10 as a corner, you need to come out and be, if not the best corner on your team, one of. And even though Terrion was drafted in the 20s, it was an offensive draft. So there are circumstances that, put him in the 20s. I mean, my co-host Lucas had him as his best corner in the draft. I liked Quinyon Mitchell, but Terrion Arnold was right there. So in terms of talent, he has the talent to immediately be your second best corner. I mean, maybe even CB1, to be honest with you. I think especially those corners that play under Nick Saban. I mean, even Brian Branch thought he should have been a first-round pick. So I think Terrion this year will immediately step in and be your second best corner. Now, in terms of Ennis Rakestraw, I think it's great that the Lions are in a position now where, they are a ready to compete roster. You're not drafting guys to come in right away and contribute. They don't have to. They're going to be able to compete. But even past Terrion, I mean, Ennis Rakestraw isn't under a lot of pressure to come play right away. I mean, you have Amik Robertson, who I think is a really good corner, who's been playing well the last 2 years with the Raiders. Even a Sione Vaki, who can come and play right away with special teams. But Giovanni Manu, I mean, he's not going to have pressure to play. He's going to have a couple years to develop. Makai Wingo won't be pressured to play right away, but certainly I think even though he was drafted in the 6th round, he has the ability to play right away. And then Christian Mahogany, the same goes for him. So, I think this draft class is different than his prior draft classes. I know, especially like a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown, he came in right away about halfway through his rookie year and was just immediately your best wide receiver. I don't know how that'll be. I don't know if that'll be the case past Terrion Arnold. I hope Ennis Rakestraw can see the field. I know, again, one of my co-hosts, Lucas, he loves his tackling ability. I think he has upside to play in the slot, and Ennis Rakestraw is just an absolute menace. I know him and man coverage is a little questionable, but he's not under pressure to play. So I'm excited for Terrion, man. I think with him, especially in the NFC North, Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, Jaden Reed, Christian Watson, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. You just go to the NFC in general and look at the wide receivers. They desperately needed a true CB1, a guy who can fulfill that. And I think Terrion can do that. So for him, I have the highest expectations. The rest of the draft class, I think it's more just, hey, take time and we'll see. I think Brad will probably, given his history, will hit on about 80% of these guys. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Love the breakdown there. So let me walk back to Terrion Arnold here. So I've been kind of a firm, I guess, how do I put it? Proponent that, you don't want to overload your rookie corners. If you have an opportunity not to start them as CB1, I feel it's almost like a good quarterback, that you can sit, for a year and allow them to learn and kind of get their feet wet. Don't put them feet to fire right away. Do you feel it would be a better idea that Brad Holmes says, yeah, you have the talent to be CB1, but let's put you at CB2 and kind of let you get your first year through you so you don't get your feet to fire and get yourself in trouble and lose confidence right away?
Yeah, I think confidence is everything, especially for corners. And for Terrion, obviously he has a lot of confidence. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with playing CB2. I mean, that's why you have Carlton Davis. He's a legit CB1. He's not, a top 5, top 10 corner, but he's a top 12 to 15 corner. And that to me is fine. That's someone that, again, is better than what you had last year, considering Cam Sutton was banged up. So yeah, I'm with you, Will. I think it's best for Terrion to ease him in. I think he'll win the spot given just his talent. But in terms of immediately guarding Justin Jefferson, I mean, this is the benefit. Not that, again, I'm not comparing the talent, but when they drafted a guy like Okudah, he was already bad, but he was expected to come in and be your best corner. Terrion doesn't have that. And I think it's going to benefit him greatly. So I'm excited for it. He should be CB2.
So I'm going to defend Okudah briefly, but not really. He wasn't given any opportunity to really learn from a vet, in my opinion. He walked into a situation where he had nobody to learn from, terrible coaching staff. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt there. I mean, we kind of didn't set him up for success. Brad Holmes sets these guys up for success. I'm on the same wavelength with you, man. Look, I think that Terrion has the tenacity, the mental aptitude, the capacity to be able to compete day one and be a CB1. I mean, the Lions traded up to acquire, Arnold for a reason at 24. Again, sniping in my opinion, the Green Bay Packers. There's some information that's been coming out lately that the Packers may have wanted Arnold. They were hoping to pick up Arnold, and the Lions leapfrogged him again. But a little bit of information on Arnold. So 90.6 PFF run defense grade last season, 84.9 in coverage, 50.7 passer rating against, which is insane. 14 forced incompletions, 11 coverage snaps, 5 interceptions in 2023. He's been known to play both inside and out. Last year, he played about 1/3 of his snaps on the inside. Do you feel that there's any opportunity for Arnold to slip down to the slot and we still might see Amik Robertson on the outside?
And that's the thing we've talked about too. I think Terrion, especially with his abilities, played safety before. And that's the crazy thing about the secondary is the versatility all over. They have so much versatility. I wouldn't be surprised to see guys moved around. I think that's AG's dream scenario with all the versatility with the guys that can play safety, play in the nickel. Even, I mean, Anzalone coming out the other day and saying how versatile Brian Branch is and his ability to play multiple positions. So, and in terms of Terrion Arnold, I think he certainly can. I would probably prefer him on the outside, given his size and his experience. But I mean, he played in the slot. Like I think every 1/3 of the season he played in the slot this year. I believe it was every 3 times he played outside, he played in the slot. So it's not like it'd be unfamiliar. Even a guy like Ennis Rakestraw, like I kind of mentioned earlier, I think eventually can start seeing some time there, especially if they want to move Brian Branch back out to safety. They're definitely going to be competing for that job, but preferably. I would prefer Terrion Arnold on the outside because, again, Amik Robertson in the run game is an absolute animal. He just is. So we'll see. But I think that's how it's going to end up going.
You know, we have a very similar mentality, I believe, with all of these corners. I mean, you see tenacity, fierce competitiveness, guys that are not afraid to mix it up in the box. The one thing that I really loved about Arnold immediately, which you could tell on night one, I mean, the guy picks up a mic. He turns around to 225,000 fans. I mean, he didn't even think twice about it. That shows you confidence. Like, not many people will do that. So he was very confident, telling, the fans he's home. He was excited. So that type of confidence speaks volumes to me. I'm really excited to see what he does on the field. He definitely has that fearless mentality. I'm excited to see what he does in the run defense game, too. I've written a lot of stuff on Arnold that I'll probably go through, a little bit later, but let's talk about Sione Vaki. So I don't know if you ever caught my little short. I kind of went nuts when Vaki was drafted because he was one of the guys that I projected to the Lions. And I love this pick. Now, I've heard some conflicting rumors, stories, evaluations on Vaki that Brad Holmes drafted him to just be a running back or utilized in the offense. I don't believe that. I mean, I feel like, they want to utilize those strengths of Vaki, but I still believe he's going to be a special contributor in special teams, as well as get an opportunity at safety. I mean, one thing we know about Brad Holmes, if you have a good player, they're going to find a way to put you in. Yep. And wherever he can help this team, he's going to help this team. So where do you see Sione Vaki year one? What do you like about his positional versatility? And Brad Holmes being that positional, what do you call it? Positional villain or whatever he had on his shirt. Yeah. I mean, he's just striking like Cobra Kai here. So what do you think about Vaki?
I thought it was interesting. I know we were doing our live stream and when Vaki was drafted, we're sitting there and my assumption, because we talked about Vaki before with his versatility, especially with when he has the ball in his hands. Like he's a playmaker. I mean, he's just a football player. I mean, he's laying hits on Jalen Polk and then, breaking free for 40-yard runs. Like he's kind of doing it all. So I'm intrigued. I think his special teams upside is very intriguing. And that's the thing you have to look at when I mentioned earlier about how there's like a little less pressure on guys drafted later in this draft class, given how good the roster is. I think when people are so used to Brad Holmes taking not just productive, but very productive players in the fourth round. So when Vaki gets picked, they're like, is this guy going to be Amon-Ra St. Brown? Like, what are we doing here? But the reality is Vaki can still have a great career by being your best special teamer, if not one of your best. And he's playing snaps at safety. And hell, if he plays some offense, I mean, that to me is still a hit. Like past round 2, Brad Holmes' hit rate is historic. It does not happen like that typically. And even for a guy like Vaki, who, he's kind of a tweener, I'm just intrigued the plan they have for him because with Giovanni Manu, I can see, okay, they want him to play either right tackle or play a guard at some point. Vaki, it's like Will he play safety? Or is he going to be? He's like listed on the depth chart as a running back. Is he going to take Craig Reynolds' spot? There's a lot of excitement there, so I am curious. He can play though. He can play ball.
I'm excited about Vaki. I mean, you talk about ballers, the guys that just love football. I mean, he's like, hey, we don't have a running back. Hey, I'll do it. Give me the rock. And he's out there looking like he's been doing it for a decade. I mean, the guy he's got skills to pay the bills, they say. So shout out to Booner in the chat, and Adam Baidu. And Booner says that Colin Cowherd would give you some crap about your backwards hat. That's funny. That's funny. There must be some inside jokes with this somewhere. I don't know, but
me and Adam, we like Colin Cowherd, so he's making fun of me for being a hypocrite.
Gotcha. I like Colin too. He's good. He's good people. Sion Vaki, man, look, I'm super excited about this kid. I think that when you look at these 4th round talents that Brad Holmes has brought in, yeah, you're expecting the best, but I think that we just needed 2 impact players. I don't know how you feel about that this year. How many impact players did you feel that we needed? How many did you feel that we got this year? That whether it's this year or next year, they're going to be impactful, meaningful contributors to this team.
We had that conversation about how many of these picks could potentially start before the draft. Mine was about 2 to maybe 3, and I think that's what they kind of have. So I'm okay with it. Even for Vaki, like he'll play special teams, but Terrion Arnold will start. I think Mekhi Wingo, given an injury, could start. Christian Mahogany has the ability to. I mean, those guys are they're there, but I think they're able to if needed. And then Ennis Rakestraw, I think, is just about whether he wins like that CB3 spot or can play in the slot. So, I'm with you. 2, especially with where they're at as a roster, you can't expect more than about 2 starters. Because if more than that are starting, it probably says more about who you signed to play those positions. Let's be real here, or just how well Brad Holmes drafted. Either one, how you look at it.
I want to touch back on what you just said right there about, who you signed, right? Who you signed in the offseason, because I put out, a little bit of some information here on how I feel Brad Holmes has done something different in 2024 that he's done in the past. But before we get to that, Mekhi Wingo, in my opinion, I love all these guys, like a phenomenal draft.
Yep.
But Mekhi Wingo to me is probably the most intriguing pick there in round 6. No idea why he slipped that far. I don't know if he had an injury history coming into the combine, or into the draft. But this guy is an interior pass rushing specialist, something that we really haven't had. Aleem McNeil's kind of been developing into that role. Now with DJ Reader on the defensive line, who's going to eat up some double teams, be a run stuffer, allowing Aleem probably to get more free. Do you see a big defensive line package where you've got Aiden, Aleem, DJ, and Mekhi out there now on the outside end on the right side, being able to get inside pressure? And I guess to follow that up, how do you feel about defensive end pass rushers, Lions not attacking that this year, going interior and back end of the defense versus the outside of the defense with another pass rusher? So those 2 questions for you.
Yeah, but I'll start with the first one with Mekhi Wingo. I'm surprised. I mean, to me, he was a top 100 player. So the fact that he was in the 6th round was just unbelievable. So I love the pick. I'm with you there. In terms of kind of what he can do, I think it's interesting, Aleem McNeil, not saying he is Aleem McNeil's replacement, but Aleem McNeil on his last year of his contract. And Mekhi Wingo, I think, has the ability to start on a defense and be very, very good. His pass rush upside is incredible. And he's a guy that you can play alongside Aleem McNeil, like you kind of pointed out there, and you can play on the edge. So I think that Mekhi Wingo pick is very, very intriguing. I know he's ticked off. He fell as well. So I'm going to be excited now with Terrell Williams, see what he can develop into.
Chip.
But I do think
another chip on the shoulder for Brad Holmes.
That's all. That's these players, man. All of them have them. And I think for this defensive line room, I had this conversation doing a lot of my pre-draft stuff with mock drafts and just kind of because people's number one thing was, are they going to address edge in the 1st round? And that was one thing I felt, hey, if you're not going corner, you go edge. But my point with that was always the edge class this year just was not deep. And you saw that immediately. In the 1st round, Latu was the first defensive player off the board, which was not surprising there. But after the 1st round, I just don't think Brad was in love with any of those guys. And Ennis Rakestraw clearly was the BPA in the 2nd. I think after that, the edges at that point would just kept falling. I mean, even Austin Booker, who I liked a lot, fell to like the 5th round. So, and I thought he was going to go a lot earlier. So I'm not mad as some other people were after the draft. Like, why didn't Brad address edge? It's like, I would rather him not do it than force his hand and take someone that's just not the player that he wants, and not a player that, quite frankly, I wanted. And I think the last edge I was interested in was Adisa Isaac in the 2nd round, and they already took Ennis Rakestraw. So, yeah, I have no problem. I'm excited. I think they have some interesting pieces. I know the people that are Matty Betts believers are excited. I tend to think he's just he's going to make the practice squad. I don't know if that's a hot take. He's going to get I'd be on the practice squad. People attack me for that, but hey, I like Matty Betts. He's a good dude, but I don't know if he's going to make the roster. But they do got a lot of defensive linemen. I just it's cluttered. Like Josh Pascal, where does he stand? Can he have a breakout season? Can Davenport stay healthy? What does Houston look like off an injury? I hope he's a sack a game guy. So there are question marks, Will. I think that's probably my biggest concern, and it's got to be. I think the Lions are kind of positioning themselves to, hopefully they don't have to do this, but if there are still questions into the season, where in the middle of the season before the trade deadline, you go out there and you get a guy with a year left to help you kind of chase a Super Bowl. I think that's what it's going to look like, but we shall see. Maybe Davenport proves everyone wrong, including me.
I didn't know much about Davenport, but the more I read about the guy, the more, I've watched some of his highlights and video, his tape. If we can get him back to 2021 and get that kind of player, even get 6 sacks out of the guy this year, I think it's a win. Here's my take on the defensive line. So, and I'll go into that other question. It's not on the list today, of course, because talking with Jeff IFR, wealth of knowledge here, we could talk for hours, I'm sure. So the thing about the defensive line for me is I've always been a big believer in interior pass rush. 2014 was probably the best defense we've had in a long time, and it was very successful. We only had 42 sacks that year, but it was very successful. We were number 1 or 2 in run defense, and we were, I think, top 16 or 15 in pass defense that year. But anyway, interior pass rush, in my opinion, is the path to the quarterback. And I talk about it from being a chain, right? A chain link. And if you break that center chain with the center, literally, the rest of it kind of crumbles. If you can get center pressure, which we have not had in a long time, the edge guys, all they have to do is just set the edge and wait. Which direction are you going to push the ball carrier? Which direction are you going to push the running back or the quarterback? All you got to do is sit and wait, and then you're going to be able to make the play. So that's why I'm excited to finally see this interior pass rush hopefully come alive, or an interior pressure, and then they address the back end of the defense. This is what I see Brad Holmes doing different this year. Not only did he double down in the draft, but he also did in free agency with cornerback, right, in the DB room. And then he added another safety in the draft. He brought back CJ Moore, which I'm quasi excited about. But he's doing things differently this year than he did last year, where last year he kind of went all out in free agency, kind of failed. None of the guys really helped this team a whole lot. This year he insured with an insurance policy. I'm going to go get some free agents, and I'm going to set the future with these guys, with Ennis Rakestraw, Terrion Arnold, Sion Vaki. Why do you think he went so hard in the paint this year on those two positions? And do you see a different management style now to Brad Holmes, where he's not going to make the same mistake he did last year by not having an insurance policy behind those free agents?
I think last year for Brad, especially, I just think he overrated the defensive line room, quite frankly. Especially with James Houston being injured, and that's fine. He learned from his mistake, and he went out and signed DJ Reader, which is an excellent way to rebound, by the way. And I think DJ Reader is immediately going to make everybody on this defense better. It's not just limited to the defensive line. I think he makes the secondary better. I think he makes everybody, and I think he makes Aaron Glenn better. I think he makes everyone better. So I'm excited. I think DJ Reader is definitely a splash signing. In terms of even Carlton Davis to get a true CB1, it was a trade, but still, I think with his ability, I'm excited as well. But yeah, I have no problem. Brad, again, last year you had James Houston going into the season. You had Josh Pascal, I believe, in his second year. So, you had a little more optimism with what they had. But once you saw the season play out, and you're like, ooh, James Houston goes down. Josh Pascal isn't quite what you expected. John Cominsky regressed. And then now you have Benito Jones out there starting. I mean, and yeah, it would scare anybody into signing DJ Reader. So, for Brad Holmes, I love it. It's an overcorrection, but it's the right thing to do. And if they had DJ Reader in the NFC Championship game, it could have been different. I mean, if you force, like you said, your point about interior pressure, forcing a quarterback, making him uncomfortable, how do you do that? By having a defensive tackle that can create pressure. And not just that, but a guy like Aleem McNeil and DJ Reader, who DJ Reader is going to command a double team. And Aleem McNeil, there'll be times where he's commanding double teams. Oh, yeah, and you have Aiden Hutchinson, who's going to command a double team. So they needed this. They needed help because last year their secondary was not good, but their defensive line certainly did not help them at all, because that was something I was clamoring for at the trade deadline. So I think DJ Reader is going to be a hell of a player for the Lions. He's going to cause some havoc this year and help make Aiden Hutchinson a Defensive Player of the Year candidate.
I'm right on board with that. So we need to see a big step up, in my opinion, from Aiden this year. So I reviewed some of the Ravens game last night on the podcast. And here's what I would maybe urge you to do today if you get some free time. Go watch some of the Ravens highlights in that game and now install DJ Reader, right? Where we didn't have interior pressure. Now install Terrion Arnold, where he was just plucking everything. Lamar was just plucking everything over the middle. Now just those two players installed, much different game. But we looked outclassed that game, out hustled, out coached, out everything. It was a terrible game, but it was a game that we needed to learn from. And I feel like it helped this team grow for the rest of the season last year. But you're spot on, man. You have DJ Reader in that NFC title game. Brock Purdy is not able to do what he does, because when Brock gets off his game, when he gets rattled, he's a different quarterback altogether. So how many players did you feel, rookies? I think you kind of answered this already, but how many do you feel really need to contribute meaningful snaps this year? So Terrion Arnold is one you feel will start right away. Who is really that second guy that we really need to get some meaningful snaps from this year?
I think it'd have to be Vaki on special teams, and maybe a little bit of safety depending on what happens there, because CJ Moore's back, but we'll see. I think Vaki he has a lot of potential there at safety as well. So I would say about two. I don't think Ennis Rakestraw is pressured to play this year, or he must play this year, even though I think he can certainly. You just have, like I said, Amik Robertson. So I would go, like, for me to give my, I guess, way too early before training camp or anything or any reports, who I think should be contributing. It should be Terrion Arnold. It should be Sione Vaki. And I think that's about it, to be honest with you. I know the rest of the guys are going to be ready to. Like I said earlier, Christian Mahogany and Mekhi Wingo can step in, but they're not under pressure to start. Obviously, Zeitler starting, Graham Glasgow starting over Christian Mahogany. And then you saw what they did on the defensive line with DJ Reader. So Mekhi Wingo is not going to be able to start right away. You could see him on the field, but in terms of starting, I think it should be only two out there this year.
All right. So a couple more questions for you. Defensive end on the right side. I guess I like outside linebacker pass rushers better than I like a DN to be a pass rusher. Just been my, I don't know. I don't know why I fell in love with that outside linebacker position, but I feel like the Lions are missing right now a linebacker. I feel like that probably is the weakest position on this defense. How do you feel about our linebackers right now in the ability that we have here in 2024? Do you feel like we're going to, end up in a weak position by not addressing linebacker? Steel Chambers, I do love that UDFA pick, and I do believe that he is somebody that could crack this roster and presents a different dynamic to the linebacker room. He's just a little bit light. I think he's like 230 pounds, but I do like his upside. So where do you view the linebacker position? Do you feel it's a weakness right now? Do we have a guy that can really rush the quarterback?
And I think to your point about outside linebackers, I get it, especially in today's NFL. But you look at what the Lions have, I'm comfortable. Especially how well these guys are against both the run and the pass, which I think is important. Like Anzalone, really good against the run. And he even proved me wrong when he first got to Detroit. I was already a little skeptical, but he's turned into a really good linebacker. Absolutely impressive. And then you have Jack Campbell, who I think with his size – last year, he's kind of playing a little bit of that Sam linebacker. I think he has more upside to be able to rush the passer, but certainly him in coverage is a whole nother beast as well. So I think Jack Campbell, he's more of a complete linebacker than people give him credit for. Derek Barnes even Derek. I mean, I'm sorry. I know Derek's had some rough spots here in Detroit early on, but last year, man, he bounced back. I know the Dak Prescott incident there, not securing the sack, it stays in people's heads, which rightfully so. But he has been really good, especially against the run more so. But I don't think as of right now I'm sitting here going the linebacker core is a weakness, but I think in the next year or two he probably will address it and to continue to add because Anzalone's not getting any younger and Derek Barnes is coming near the end of his contract unless they want to re-sign him. But I don't think at this point I would still put edge as the biggest need just because of the question marks they have currently in that room. And I'd probably throw honestly, with the safety depth, that's a little concerning to me. So I might even go a little bit of safety. And wide receiver, I'm not as concerned as much because we had the discussion, and I think the Lions are comfortable with who they have in the room. You could probably bring another body at wide receiver, but I would put the linebacker need in that tier of needs, not like edge, or it's like hit the panic button. We might have Davenport starting at week 7. Like the linebacker core, I'm not as concerned about.
I'm really surprised that we didn't take another wide receiver, especially with my views on roster roulette and how you bring players in, you drop them into the funnel, you get them ready because you overpay at a wide or any position. If you pay big money, $30 million to wide receiver, you are now living in the draft for the next 4 or 5 years to replace your receivers because you're not going to be able to go out and spend a $10 million on a DJ Chark, which it was a bad idea in my opinion, but you're not going to be able to go out and spend big money on free agents anymore. Especially when you look at the percentages, per position and how that kind of works out. So, Eric Rintamaki here, Uper Lights. What questions do you have for Jeff this morning? Anything?
What's going on, Eric?
Hey, what's happening? Got to meet you briefly, really fast down at the combine there, and man, I still need to get a Crunch Time shirt.
Oh, dude, I got you guys. I'm gonna send you both one.
Yeah, for sure.
Love it.
I got you.
And yeah, so I was a big fan when you guys were on Woodward. I always watched the morning show, and I just love Lions content. I try to watch it 365 days a year, and I'm a little less analytical than Will and everybody else. I'm just a Lions fan. I'm just a pure 100% Lions fan, Packer hater, and
rightfully so.
I am. So I guess my biggest question for you would be, if Terrion Arnold is our number 1 pick and you think he's going to be the starter, do you think that Rakestraw has a chance to crack the starting lineup before the end of the season? Because I watched a lot of this Rakestraw kid yesterday, and from everything he talks and everything he does and the way he plays, man, I was totally impressed. I didn't realize he was such a good player and such a good kid. He stuck around at the end of games and signed balls for kids. And he told these kids, hey, they told me I couldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
They told me I couldn't do it. And then he had this letter from that he sent to his 4th grade teacher on the last day of school, telling him, someday I'm going to be a professional ball player, and I hope you're alive to see it. And then he's got a picture with him with that letter and that teacher. So this kid is super humble, and I almost feel like he might be our breakout player from this draft. What do you think of Rakestraw?
I love him. It was when we had. Well, I'll make this very clear for Rakestraw when we did the whole pre-draft stuff. I wasn't a fan of him in the first round, but I am a huge fan of him in the second round because of the value there. You get a first-round talent in the second round for whatever reason, however he fell, the question marks or the injuries, whatever. I love his mindset, and that's something that I think Brad Holmes, man, and that's what I can appreciate about him is he's not just drafting football players, he's drafting human beings, and he just consistently nails it every single time. Like even the Terrion video of him when he was younger saying, like, I want to be great so bad. I want to be great so bad. It's like now the Rakestraw thing coming out, like with him and his past. Like these guys they're great dudes, but they're good football players. And for Rakestraw, if you're telling me if I could see him playing by the end of the year, I would not be surprised whatsoever. I think he has the ability to play right away, given his size. I just think watching the tape on him, there are times in coverage where he does get a little lost. But I think playing with veterans and playing under AG and adjusting to the NFL and not being forced to play right away, he will learn a lot. So I think by the end of the season, I certainly think he can surprise a lot of people. And I think he could be, again, he can even maybe play in the slot for you while Brian's starting at safety. So if he's a good football player, man, Aaron Glenn's going to find a way to get him on the field. And I had someone suggest him even playing a little bit of safety, which I didn't like. I think he's a corner, but just with his versatility, I wouldn't put it past him. I think he can play multiple positions. So I'm with you, man. I love Rakestraw. He checks a lot of boxes for me.
So I'm all on board with that, man. I think that Rakestraw has an ability to crack this roster. I really do. Yeah. I think that he's going to have to beat out a Meek. I mean, hands down, I can't see a Meek taking over Brian Branch's position. But for the last minute here, my last question would be this. Brian Branch heading back to safety is something that I spoke highly about early in spring, that if the Lions went as deep as they were going to do in the draft, after what they did in free agency, that we could see Brian Branch go back to safety. And Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell both alluded to that a little bit, that last year they kind of stuck him in the nickel. They fed him as much nickel as they could. They didn't overload him. This year they're going to feed him a different position. So with Brian Branch having an opportunity to go back to safety, I think that kind of opens the door for Rakestraw. But how do you feel about Branch going back to safety? Do you think that he can get back to his playing days at Alabama and be a good contributor versus, I think it would be over Kirby Joseph, maybe?
Yeah, I would agree with you there. And I love Kirby, but he to me is a true he is a ball hawk, but with that comes the gambling, which comes potentially big plays being given up. But when he gets turnovers and creates them, he creates them. But yeah, I'm with you about Branch. I think Branch I'm very high on him compared to a lot of other players, just because I think for him, the reason why he fell, I couldn't tell you. I mean, he should have been a first-round pick. I think the combine stuff, like you said, the Pajama Olympics had something to do with it, certainly.
Yeah.
And I think he's a future All-Pro. I do. That's how much faith I have in him. He's going to be one of the best safeties in the NFL. So for a guy like that, can he play safety and get back to his days at Alabama? Absolutely, because of his IQ. He's such a smart football player. I think he's one of the smartest players on the defense, to be honest with you, even though he's quiet. He just carries himself the right way. So I'm a huge fan of Brian. I think this year playing more snaps at safety, he can play that versatility because of how smart he is. I don't think there'll be a drop off or anything like that. I do love him in the slot though. That's where it's like you watch him last year, man. He was sticky in coverage and he made a lot of guys' jobs difficult. So there'll be times selfishly where I want to see him in the slot, but I think Brian could excel anywhere. I think if you put Brian at corner, he could play corner. That's how good that's how high I am on Brian Branch. He'll just play anything you give him. Damn good football player.
I don't know if his hips are as oily as we would like at corner, but look, I'm in the same boat as you, man. Branch is special. What an absolute pleasure to have on this team, and what an absolute pleasure to have you on the show this morning. Love to have you back and get you back in and talk some more Lion stuff. Jeff IFR, tell us all about your podcast. Everyone already knows anyway, but tell us all about it, where people can find you and what's coming up next for you guys.
Well, I appreciate you, Will, and Eric. You guys have me on. I had a lot of fun. It's funny. It's been a while since I've been waking up this early to do shows. Obviously, I record content, but it feels good. It feels good to be up early to record. So I'm appreciative of you guys, man. Hopefully, we can do it again. You can check out my channel. Me and the fellas. We got a live show we do every single day, 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. It's me, Booner, Lucas, Michael Gentry. And we all just bring a different set of skills, and we typically are yelling at each other for 2 hours a day. So it's a lot of fun. If you haven't checked it out, please do that. So I appreciate you, Will, for having me on, man. We got to do this again, and I got to get you on.
Yeah, we will. Absolutely.
Got to get you on. Absolutely.
Hey, I'd love to. When I've watched you guys' show, it kind of reminded me of the Three Stooges, but Four Stooges. You guys are hilarious at times, and such a wealth of knowledge. You guys clearly know your stuff, and it's fresh to watch. I'm glad, like I said in the email, man, doing your thing. Those are the types of things that sometimes people don't take an opportunity to do, and you did your own thing, and I think it's awesome. So awesome to have you on today. Wish you nothing but the best, future success, and let's go Lions, man. We'll get you back on soon, and we'll touch base.
Let's do it. Go Lions. I'll talk to you later, fellas.
All right, Jeff. Take care, man. All right. Awesome to have Jeff on this morning. Such an intelligent human being, man. He knows his stuff. Appreciate all the support from we had Crunch Time fellas in the chat this morning, keeping things lively and fresh. So awesome to have you guys on. So the one thing that I wanted to go into today was the piece that I kind of prepared on Terrion Arnold. I didn't want to really buckle down Jeff with all of this. You know how I do. When I start going on a player, man, it can take a minute. But I prepared some information on Terrion Arnold, and I really believe in this kid, like big time. I think that this was a special move for Detroit. I think it was the right time. Clearly the right move at the right time, because the Lions needed that future successor at cornerback 1. Whether he makes the leap to cornerback 1 or 2, just like Jeff said, doesn't need to happen this year, but it could. And he's got the ability to do it. So Terrion Arnold, obviously the Detroit Lions traded up to acquire this Alabama corner that led the SEC in all cornerbacks and interceptions last season and pass breakups. He also led the conference with a 90.6 PFF run defense grade, 84.9 coverage grade, 50.7 passer rating against, 14 forced incompletions, 11 coverage stops, and 5 interceptions in 2023. He has been known to play, like I said earlier, both inside and outside, slot and outside. He did a bit more in 2023 play in the slot, which was good to see that he had that versatility. So if he's called upon in a pinch, if injuries, happen to creep up, which they do, it's going to happen in the NFL. It happens every season, that he can be versatile, and that he's got, the hips to be able to do it and to stay sticky in the slot, which is really tough. But in my opinion, Detroit has officially cemented and overhauled its cornerback room with the additions of Arnold, Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson, Ennis Rakestraw. I think that Brad Holmes dug deep. I think that he finally solidified a position that has really been our Achilles heel for more than a decade, to be honest with you. I mean, we've been last in pass defense for a long time. I can't even remember the last time. Maybe it was 2014 that we were, maybe in the top 20 for pass defense. So it's been that long, and we've thrived on, having a good defensive line or having good edge rushers or decent linebackers. In 2014, we kind of had a little bit of everything. We had Jason Jones, you had Levy, you had, I think Tulloch was on the team back then, if I remember correctly. But you had a good mixture of guys, and Nick Fairley and Ndamukong Suh, they could all get to the quarterback and create havoc in the run game. We've done well in the run game. We just haven't been able to address the back end of the defense, and finally, Detroit Lions did it. So a few reasons why I love Terrion Arnold in the way that he projects to the Detroit Lions. One, I love the fact that he is very aware of the football. Some people think that this is a detractor of his skills by, the way he plays the game. And I kind of want to start with this, with his awareness. And he's got big time heads up play ability and big time playmaking ability. Number one, he's more often than not, he has his eyes on the quarterback while, tracking the receiver and the ball. He uses his hands, and I've said this before, kind of like antennas, right? He's kind of feeling his way around to make sure that he's close, because when your head's turned the other way, obviously you're not turned bearing down on the wide receiver and looking at the wide receiver. He's turned the other way or inside looking back at the quarterback. This limits, the field of play, while he's pushing that wide receiver to the boundary, which in my opinion, gives him or gives the quarterback a very tight window, an awkward throwing window, or an angle, kind of a dangerous throw. This is a veteran move, man. I mean, like, these are big boy type plays. He plays big boy type ball. Number two, this one's really important to me. And last season, I noticed that the Lions DBs kind of ran downfield with their backs turned to the quarterback. I kept saying, chest to the football, chest to the quarterback. If you don't know where the quarterback is, if you don't know when the ball's coming out, how are you going to make a play on the ball, especially as a corner or a linebacker? And when your back is turned, what is that doing to the middle of the field? It's leaving it wide open. And that's exactly what happened to us last season. We got killed over the middle of the field. And when quarterbacks are able to get past the defensive line The middle of the field is wide open for them to scramble and gain 10, 12, 15 yards. Can't happen again. It just can't. And with a corner like Terrion Arnold that can run downfield with his head turned, use his antennas to stay sticky, stay in phase with these receivers, that's a different type of corner, right? That takes a very special athlete. Some say that he's a bit too handsy, that he may attract some dirty laundry at the next level. I don't really share this same sentiment. Is he aggressive? 1,000%. Yes, he's aggressive. But he has his eyes on the ball, which is the difference. So if you have your eyes on the ball and you're making a play on the ball, you're fighting for a chance to make a play on the ball. Typically, you don't get a flag. Now, if you have your head turned the other way in your handsy and you're not looking at the ball, you're not making a play on the ball, that's when the dirty laundry comes in. Mirror match and the ability to maintain distance and stay in phase with the receiver. Terrion's excellent at doing this. Now, is he going to have a challenge at the next level? 1,000% he will. The guys are bigger, stronger, faster. Arnold's going to have to level up his game, and I believe that comes through, technique and honing his skills and being able to, learn from some of these veterans, especially the guys like AG that played the position at a high level. But Terrion does this well. Again, mirror match, ability to maintain distance and staying in phase with receivers. Terrion does this very well. He has enough speed and skill and technique to stay sticky, like I often say. He does have one issue, though. Let me grab a quick drink here. He does have one issue, though, that I've noticed, and that is how he learns or how he leans or he kind of tips his body early on a route. This can lead to getting beat underneath on quick passes, stop routes, curls, slants, etc. Where I have confidence is that this is coachable, right? Terrion can learn to stay even with the receiver with his shoulders squared up, which will allow him to not give up the underneath stuff, right? Terrion is a high point acrobat, in my opinion. He attacks the catch point well. It's almost like he feels he should catch every single ball that is thrown his way. Again, that's a veteran move. He displays his aggressiveness and willingness to make plays that change the field, either with interceptions or defending the pass, and even creating plays for other guys on the field, like, a tipped interception. Brian Branch was the benefactor of a tipped interception last year on Patrick Mahomes. And those are the types of plays that, I can see Terrion making. If he's not making a play for himself, he should be able to make, plays for other people, other players on the defense. Confidence, like he is confident and he has a fearless mentality, especially in run defense. I think that everyone seen just who Terrion was at the draft, kind of like what I said earlier. He has no issue of being in front of 225,000 people, grabbing a mic and showing the world that he's an alpha, that he has that alpha mentality. And I love this. I really love the fact that he showed us this side of him, because on the field, as a corner, you have to have at least two things to even want to be successful. At a minimum, confidence and a short but very well-trained memory are the two things that a corner must have. Again, that's just my opinion. I don't think it's my opinion alone, but it's definitely needed. Arnold proved to be fairly fearless as a run stopper. He engages. He doesn't shy away from making the first impact or the first contact. He doesn't allow the runner to get too deep inside of his zone, which would create an unbalanced attack for Arnold. He steps up, he makes contact, he uses proper leverage and angles, and he stays low, utilizing that leverage to win, or at least slow down the runner until help comes, to finish him off. Lastly, Arnold's instincts, his physical nature, his alpha mentality, his ability to stick to receivers, in my opinion, should allow him to get early playing time and push for a starting role right away. So to kind of match, like what Jeff was saying, he should be able to push for PET right away, whether that's 1 or 2. I don't think it really matters. I would prefer we slow walk Terrion, but look, Brad Holmes, Dan Campbell, they know what they're doing. Whatever they decide to do, I trust. It's going to be an interesting season, I think, for some of these guys. I think the Terrion Arnold has got the early edge right now, and what could be defensive rookie of the year odds. I'm putting him in that boat right now. I think that he's going to, especially if he's in cornerback 2 position, I think that those odds even increase a little bit further. So, all right, let's see what the chat's saying this morning, and then we're gonna sign off for the day. Let's see here. Moonscar Blade. According to my wife, I have a short memory. Put me in. Zachary Cleary says, don't get me started on the game against the Ravens last year. It was atrocious. It was. But what I would love for you guys to do, which I did last night. I don't know how many of you were in last night. I would love, to see you guys just take a moment and watch those highlights, but then install a guy like DJ Reader, install a guy like Terrion Arnold, and now second year Brian Branch and second year Jack Campbell and a healthy Aleem McNeil and Aiden Hutchinson entering his 3rd season. You start looking at that defense a little bit differently when you have those types of players now in Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson. I mean, just complete bulldogs. I mean, those guys love to mix it up. So with all that said, Eric, where are you at on Terrion Arnold this year in the defense as a whole? How far do you think we can really go?
Well, Terrion, I think, needs to acclimate to the pro game, which I think he's going to be fine with some good coaching. And he's got some veterans to learn from, Carlton Davis, Amik Robertson. So I don't think his transition is going to be all that difficult because he's coming from a pro-style defense, not some small school type of thing. And our defense, if we can just crack the top 15 overall, even in pass defense, would be absolutely phenomenal. And I think that will push us to a Super Bowl. And that's all we need. We only need one starter right away, day one, I think, from this draft. And I think that kid is Arnold. I think Rakestraw will push for some starting time, but not until later in the season. So I really do think that you might see Carlton Davis and Terrion Arnold out there at the same time to start day one, game one.
So I think I just put up 2 things at the same time in the chat here. Chef Talk say, nice to see you, Chef. You got to get a hold of me, buddy. Now that I'm kind of back in the saddle, we can chat it up maybe later on today. So he wanted to know Quinn Trisha or Matt Millen, who was worse? Which era was worse? So we put that in the poll. And then a little question and answer format here. Can Terrion Arnold become Defensive Rookie of the Year? I think that the odds are better for Terrion this year because when you look at the first round talent that was taken, as far as the defenders that were taken, it was pick 15 that we finally seen the first defensive player come off the board. So it's kind of equal in the first round between offensive players, defensive players, and there's a good mix of different positions. So I think when you look at first rounders, not to say that only a first rounder can become Defensive Rookie of the Year, but I think the odds are a little bit better, a little maybe more stacked in their favor. I think that Terrion Arnold has a very good opportunity here in Detroit because he's got a good defensive line. He's got, solid backups and guys around him, veteran leadership around him. He's got, a couple of the best coaches in the league, including Dan Campbell and positional coaches is what I meant. I think that, he's got the ability to do it. It's just where the Lions going to stick him. I think if they stick him at QB1 right away and he starts to get, maybe I hate to use the word torched, but maybe if he doesn't play up to his playing ability, that'll obviously hurt his stock. I really want to see him start at CB2, playing on the outside and kind of slow walking him into the league. I think it'd be the best decision for the Lions. And I know I've said it a lot this morning. I'm kind of like a broken record today, but I'm just super excited about it, man. I think that it was a great pick. I think it's going to give the Lions some great opportunity this year to really showcase some different defensive schemes. Now that we have the corners that can play, I think that this opens up AG's playbook a little bit more. It almost seemed like the playbook kind of got shut last year and we became very how do I put it? Not really one dimensional, but it almost seemed like teams kind of knew what we were doing, and they were able to pick us apart on the defense. Offense, they just couldn't stop us, and that's the one thing that we had going for us is we could put up 30 points in any different game. It didn't matter, and that's what kept us in the games. So before we head off for today, Eric, what do you got left you want to share with everybody?
All right, so I just looked this up on DraftKings. To be defensive rookie of the year this year, Dallas Turner has the best odds at plus 400. And then Latu at 550, Quinyon Mitchell at 1100, Jared Verse at 1100, and in fifth place, Terrion Arnold at plus 1200. And then all the way down at plus 5,000, Ennis Rakestraw. So that's how the...
Wait, where was Rakestraw?
Rakestraw is way down plus 5,000.
Okay. All right. So that brings me to a great point. Don't forget, now that we should be back to normal, and I do have to go back to Florida, so that will cause a little hiccup. Thankfully, we are in the slow period of Lions news right now. But the show is going to go 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and on Mondays we are going to start a segment called Over Under Reaction. So it's going to be reactions to kind of what's going on. Obviously, it's going to get a lot better as the season progresses. But Over Under Reaction Mondays will start next week, Monday. And we're going to kind of get your opinions, right? We're going to get your reactions to, the things that are going on with the Lions throughout the season and throughout the league. So it's not just Lions content that we're going to share Monday through Friday. We'll also be dipping around the league, NFC North heavy. But we will be dipping into the news around the league and kind of sharing what's going on so that we can kind of give you a full show. Obviously, throughout the season, you can't pack an hour. It's too easy. Like, you can blow through an hour now. It's way too easy. So the show will turn out to be a 2-hour show. Could be longer. As we get more people to do segments and come on the show, it will be, designated to have individuals coming on each week as time permits for them. To kind of give you guys, a consistency, if you will, of, the same type of information, the same type of commentary every single day. That way you can tune in. If you can't come in at 8, but hey, I got this guy at 8:30, you can tune in, at the 8:30 segment. We'll do half-hour segments with everybody, and it's a slow build, but I think by the time the season really kicks off, we should have it all dialed in. Obviously, training camp is going to be different this year. Obviously, I'm going to try to be out there almost every day. So doing the show in the morning live from out there probably won't happen. Lions I'm sure will not allow that. I'd have to do it outside of the facility, which isn't a big deal. I can always set something up and do it outside the facility. Whether or not they'll let me set up a lawn chair in their lawn and do it, I doubt, but we'll try to do it once at least, see what they say. All right. So before we sign off, anything else you want to share?
Not too much. I wouldn't mind going to a training camp day. I haven't been to one of the days for training camp since they were back down at Saginaw Valley. Last time
I'll tell you about training camp. You've got to get the tickets early. So last year, the tickets sold out in like an hour. With season tickets, obviously we will get some tickets, but as far as the rest of it, you have to get on early in plan to be waiting for hours to be able to confirm your selections. We'll talk more about that, off air, but you'll definitely be able to go.
The last time I went was the day that Barry Sanders didn't show up, and Bobby Ross had to get on the mic and tell everybody, "Oh, Barry's not here today. His plane was delayed," or something like that.
I don't even want to talk about delayed planes, man. Like American Airlines has burned me. Being old, you take medications, right? I made the one mistake I never make, and I did not bring extra medication, right? So now not having a thyroid, after the cancer this last year, I have to have thyroid medication. And when I got back, I was drained because I didn't have that hormone in my body for more than 24 hours. And you wouldn't think it's a big deal, but man, I never understood how important a thyroid really was until I went through this. So big mistake. And then checking my bag and not being able to get my bag back because they forced me to check it because they were too full. And I wasn't even on that plane. So I had no luggage. I had and they didn't care. They just didn't care. But anyway, they'll be hearing from me here soon anyway, because they're going to get my receipts. So anyway, tomorrow, I'm not sure what we're going to talk about yet tomorrow, but we'll be browsing the internet waves. Take a look at Broderick Martin, man. The guy has changed his game. I might do a little video later on today just talking about Broderick Martin and the changes that he has made. I've tried reaching out to get some comments. Hasn't happened yet. But we'll keep working on it. Maybe one of the other insiders will be able to get some, comments. I'll try to reach out to a couple and see if they can help us out that way and put a piece out about Broderick Martin, because I think it's needed. If I can't get it done, maybe they could definitely get it done. So I think that people want to know, is Martin on pace to really be a benefactor of hard work this offseason and help this defense can, be a contributor this year. I will tell you, I think that he's a backup, right? I mean, he's not someone that's going to push Aleem McNeil or DJ Reader. He's a solid backup, but we need good rotational players. We need to keep DJ Reader's legs fresh. And how do you do that? You don't put him in for 80% of the snaps. I think the DJ's probably played around 50, 60% of the snaps last year, if memory serves me right. But we'll see what he can do this year once he's fully healthy. Looks like we just got some good news. We will have Giovanni Manus, recruiter, on next week. Should be after 6 p.m. So look for that news to drop. We'll be getting the inside scoop on Giovanni Manu. I know some of the other podcasts and insiders have had some of the coaches on. Excellent pieces on Giovanni Manu. And that'll be the last thing I touch on today. And we'll touch base on this again on Monday. Manu has already been slotted to start at the right guard position behind Zeitler. And this was an excellent move, in my opinion, by, Hank Fraley, Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, to identify a guy that they can bring in with such size and such ability, just a good quality, wholesome guy that's been through a lot. I mean, he's had a kind of a tough life. Amazing opportunity for this kid to come in and to compete and learn from some of the best in the game. One of the best coaches on the offensive line in the game, and obviously some of the best offensive linemen in the game. So I expect his trajectory to be bent a little bit. I don't think it's going to take him as long as what people think. I think that he'll be able, by year 2, if he needs to start, I think that Giovanni Manu will be able to start. But we'll find out more about that on Monday. And that's all for today's episode of Rise and Grind Morning Show, Thursday, May 9th, 2024. And we'll be back at it tomorrow morning. And then, of course, Friday night, we'll do off the cuff. Schedule is going to change a little bit for the summer. I'll be putting out a new schedule, keep everybody in the loop. And that way we can get out more videos too. So last tidbits from you, Eric. Where can everybody find Uperlights if they wanted to?
So if you go to Uperlights.com, YOOPERLITES, that's my website. You can check out all the videos I've done. I'm a little well known in the rock world. I discovered a rock here in Michigan in 2017 known as Uperlights, and I've done lots of TV stuff, the History Channel, Discovery Channel, Travel Channel, PBS, Smithsonian Channel, and I'm working on some new stuff. I have a Zoom meeting later today with a Netflix possible show. So I got some really big things possibly coming. Might be nothing, might be something super awesome, but I got a Zoom on that today. And yeah, so wish me luck, you guys. And thank you guys all for tuning in. I super appreciate it.
Don't forget that you need your extra on Netflix. Yeah. I can contact his agent. His name is Will Rock. We'll make sure that we get him in. But if you, I'll be a rock. I'll be a weed. I'll tree. Whatever you need me to be, I'll be. I mean, shit, my last name's Rock. I got to be on the damn thing, right?
Yeah,
so
but this might not be for rocks. This might be for some of my other stuff.
Oh, that stuff. I see. I'll keep that stuff.
In the loop, and I'll let you know what's going on. But yeah, this might be a big opportunity for me. It might be nothing. I don't know, because I've had some of these Hollywood companies come to me before and talk to me about having my own show and stuff, and it fizzled. and nothing happened with it. So we'll see. I believe it when I see it, kind of deal for me.
Well, you've definitely been a staple in the rock world since you discovered this thing. And in case you guys don't understand, he actually discovered a rock and named the rock Uperlite. So that's all trademark, copyright, trademark information, trademark. There we go. So interesting stuff. If you guys want to check it out, he does very limited tours up north. He typically is booked right away, but maybe next year you guys can get in on one. He was talking about doing a Lions fan and a Lions player type tour, but maybe I can get him to do a Lions fan tour if we can open up his schedule for one more day.
We might be able to pull something off. Yeah,
maybe we could pull something off.
Maybe fans of the show or something.
Yeah. So, all right, y'all. Appreciate you guys joining us. Have an excellent morning. We got storms coming, so just keep your eyes and ears out, and stay safe and enjoy it, man.
Kangaroo.
Yeah. All right, you guys have a great one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.